Have you ever opened your door and realized your life had already been exposed to the world without your permission? Because that's exactly how it started. If you're into real stories like this, make sure you're following. This one gets intense fast. On a quiet Tuesday morning in late October, my neighbor Gerald stood outside my apartment holding the local newspaper like it was something fragile or dangerous. He didn't greet me, didn't explain. He just extended it toward me, his expression already apologizing. That silence told me everything. I took the paper, he left. And just like that, whatever was inside became mine to face alone. I sat down, unfolded it, and read every word of the half-page advertisement my mother had paid to publish. Yes, my mother. At the bottom, her name appeared neatly printed, formal, and deliberate. Above it was something I still struggle to fully describe, not just criticism, not just disappointment, but a carefully constructed public dismantling of me. She declared she had failed as a mother, then she explained why. She listed my divorce at 27, my modest apartment, my average salary, my absence from family events, my refusal to join the family business. Line by line, it read like a resume of disappointment, but here's the strange part: I didn't feel shock. I felt calm, not the kind of numbness that comes with denial, but a quiet, steady clarity. The kind that arrives when something you've always suspected is finally confirmed in writing. My name is Celeste Voss. I'm 34 years old. I work as a financial compliance analyst. In simple terms, I investigate irregularities. I follow patterns, I build cases from details most people overlook, and for most of my life, my family treated that ability like it was a flaw. If you've ever had someone rewrite your story while you were still living it, you already know how this feels. So before we go further, if you want part 2 when it drops, make sure you're following, because this story doesn't end where you think it does. My mother ran a catering business, successful, respected, deeply tied to her identity. She built it with a clear vision: one daughter would handle people, the other would handle money. My older sister, Petra, fit perfectly into that plan. She had charm, warmth, she could walk into a room and own it effortlessly. From a young age, she stood beside my mother, learning everything. She belonged there, I didn't. At 16, I told my mother I wanted something different. I wanted independence. A career that wasn't tied to family expectations. A life I built myself. She didn't hear ambition. She heard rejection, and she never stopped hearing it that way. By the time I read that ad, it had already been circulating for 2 days. People had seen it, shared it, talked about it. My phone confirmed it, messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, a voicemail asking if I was okay, and one text from my mother: "I hope you're ready to have a real conversation now." I didn't reply. Instead, I did something else, something very me. I documented everything: photos of the ad, screenshots, digital copies, a timeline of events, no emotion, no commentary, just facts. Because when you spend your life analyzing patterns, you don't react immediately, you observe, and then you start connecting dots. Here's what my family didn't realize: their lives, especially their businesses, weren't as stable as they believed. My mother's catering company relied heavily on a leased commercial kitchen, a lease that wasn't guaranteed long-term. And through my professional exposure, I already knew something they didn't: that area was being considered for redevelopment. Meaning her business was standing on borrowed time, she just didn't know it yet. Then there was Petra. 2 years earlier, she launched her own smaller brand targeting high-end, intimate clients. Most of her income came from a handful of consistent contracts built largely on reputation, and reputation is fragile, especially when it becomes attached to public controversy. Here's the part people misunderstand. I didn't sabotage them, I didn't spread rumors, I didn't invent anything, I simply stopped protecting them. For years, I had unknowingly acted as a buffer, an unspoken endorsement. In professional circles, people trusted my judgment. And by extension, they trusted anything connected to me, including my family, even when they didn't deserve it. That changed the moment I saw my life printed in black and white. Within 10 days, conversations started happening. Not strategic ones, honest ones. People asked me what happened, and for the first time I told the truth: no exaggeration, no emotion, just facts. Exactly what had been published, exactly who published it, exactly how my family operated behind the scenes. And here's the thing about truth: you don't have to push it, it moves on its own. One of Petra's major clients paused their contract. Another started looking elsewhere. A third quietly stepped away. I didn't tell them to, they decided on their own. That's when Petra called me twice, from unknown numbers. She thought I wouldn't pick up if I recognized her. She was right. I didn't. Then my mother showed up. At my door, holding a dish of food, like she always did when she wanted forgiveness to arrive before her words. She sat across from me, composed but rehearsed. She said she wanted to wake me up, that she believed in public accountability, that the ad was meant to open a door between us. I asked her one question: what door opens by publishing your daughter's divorce in a newspaper? She didn't answer. Instead, she started explaining. Things had gotten out of hand. Petra had added more than expected. My father had acted independently. In other words, no one was responsible. And yet somehow everyone was. If you've ever seen how people avoid accountability, you know exactly what that looks like. And sitting there listening to her, I realized something important. This wasn't a mistake, it was a system. And systems don't collapse all at once. They unravel slowly, quietly, until suddenly they don't exist anymore. The first real crack appeared a few weeks later. The building my mother depended on sold, new ownership, new plans. And no lease renewal, that's when everything started to shift. Clients hesitated, partnerships weakened, questions surfaced, and for the first time, my family had to face something they'd avoided for years consequences, but what happened next? That's where everything changed for all of us. And trust me, you're not ready for it. The building sale finalized faster than anyone expected, formal notices were sent out, tenants were given timelines. Extensions were discussed, but not guaranteed. My mother's lease, not renewed. Under normal circumstances, she would have handled it. She had experience, connections, a solid reputation in the community. She could have relocated operations, reassured clients, adapted, but these weren't normal circumstances. Because while she was dealing with a logistical problem, her reputation was quietly collapsing. The conversations happening around Crestfield had changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. Event coordinators started asking careful questions. Clients began hesitating before confirming bookings, some withdrew entirely. One client asked directly, "This isn't the same family from that newspaper situation, is it?" Another didn't ask at all, they just canceled. And in businesses built on trust and perception, that's all it takes. By the time access to the prep facility officially ended, the damage had already been done. The business wasn't losing momentum, it was shrinking. Petra's situation wasn't any better. Her brand depended on consistency, on long-term relationships, repeat clients, quiet reliability. But reliability doesn't survive uncertainty. Contracts that once renewed automatically were suddenly under review. Emails that used to be answered within hours stretched into days, then silence. And the hardest part, no one blamed her directly, they just moved on. It's strange how consequences work. They don't always arrive loudly, sometimes they show up as absence. Winter passed quietly, no dramatic confrontations. No public fallout, just distance. Then in February, there was a knock on my door again. This time, my mother wasn't holding anything, no food, no offering, no attempt to soften the moment. She looked smaller. Not physically, but in presence, like someone who had finally run out of explanations. She sat across from me just like before, but this time there was no performance, no rehearsed tone, no carefully chosen words, just honesty. She said she was sorry, and this time I believed her. She told me something I hadn't expected, that for years she had been living inside a version of me that didn't actually exist. A story she had built slowly, quietly, until it replaced reality. In that story, I wasn't independent, I was distant. I wasn't self-sufficient, I was rejecting her. And then she said something that explained more than anything else ever had. When she was younger, her own sister had left the family, walked away, no explanation, no closure, and it stayed with her. That feeling of being abandoned, of not being enough to make someone stay, she never processed it, she just carried it. And somewhere along the way, she placed that weight on me. I listened, I didn't interrupt. Because for the first time, she wasn't trying to control the narrative. She was finally telling the truth, and the truth made sense, but it didn't undo anything. Understanding someone's pain doesn't erase the damage they caused with it. When she finished, there was silence, not uncomfortable, just final. I told her I believed her every word, and then I told her something she wasn't expecting. "I'm not ready to rebuild anything with you." She didn't argue. Didn't defend herself, she just listened. So I continued. I told her this wasn't about punishment, it wasn't about revenge, and it wasn't because her apology didn't matter. It was because for 17 years I had been the one trying. The one adjusting, the one understanding, the one absorbing. Turning the other cheek doesn't heal you if you're the only one doing it. I told her I needed distance, not permanently, but honestly, for the first time in my life, she nodded. And then she left. I don't know what she did after that, I don't know how she processed it, and for once I didn't feel the need to find out because something had shifted, not around me, within me. I still live in the same apartment. Still work the same job, still follow the same routines. From the outside, nothing changed, but everything changed. The life my mother once mocked in a newspaper, the quiet one, the simple one. The one she thought was small enough to disappear into, it's the life that gave me freedom, stability, peace, and most importantly, choice. I no longer explain myself to people who already decided who I am. I no longer shrink to fit someone else's expectations. And I no longer protect people from the consequences of how they treat me, because here's what I finally understood. Cruelty doesn't become love just because it comes from family. And public humiliation isn't guidance, it's a reflection. Some people believe loyalty means shielding each other from consequences. I used to believe that too. Now I think loyalty means something else entirely. It means telling the truth. Even when the truth is uncomfortable. Even when the truth is about yourself. especially when the truth is that you allowed yourself to be diminished for far too long. But the thing that stayed with me the most, it wasn't the ad, wasn't the fallout, wasn't even the apology, it was that moment of calm, that stillness I felt when I first read those words, because it wasn't emptiness, it was clarity, the kind that only comes when you stop being surprised. And here's something I've noticed since then. The exact moment you stop needing someone's approval is the moment they realize how much they needed yours. If you've ever had to choose between keeping peace and keeping your self-respect, you already know, there's only one choice that lets you sleep at night. And once you make it, you never go back. If this story hit you in any way, make sure you're subscribed, there's more like this coming.